"Do you really think you belong here serving us?" The words cut through the crowded restaurant like a blade. A wealthy family sat at the center table, their laughter loud, their arrogance impossible to ignore. The waitress, young, black, and holding a tray that trembled just slightly, forced a smile, but her eyes told another story. Every insult they hurled was designed to break her, to remind her of her place. But what none of them knew was that she held a secret. And when she finally stepped up to the microphone, everything changed. The question is, how? Her name was Danielle, a young woman in her mid-20s, juggling 2 jobs just to keep the lights on. By day, she studied music at the community college, dreaming of one day standing on a stage where her voice could finally be heard. By night, she worked long shifts as a waitress at one of the city's busiest upscale restaurants, a place where expensive suits and designer handbags filled the room, and people like her often felt invisible. Despite the chaos, Danielle carried herself with quiet strength. She knew every regular's favorite drink, remembered every detail of the menu, and moved with the grace of someone who refused to let exhaustion show. Behind her polite smile, though, lived a fire, a voice that had carried her through church choirs and open mics, a voice she rarely shared beyond the walls of her small apartment. Most nights the job was routine, but every now and then there were customers who reminded her of the invisible lines society still drew, lines that said she didn't quite belong. Danielle had learned to swallow the sting of casual remarks, the dismissive glances, the times her service was questioned simply because of the color of her skin. Still, she endured. She kept her head high, because she believed that one day her music would lift her above all of it. But on this night, with one wealthy family seated at the center of the dining room, laughter dripping with disdain, Danielle's patience and her silence were about to be tested like never before. The night had started like any other, clinking glasses, bursts of laughter, the low hum of conversation. But from the moment the hostess seated them, the wealthy family at the center table seemed determined to make a spectacle of themselves. A father in a tailored suit, a mother dripping in diamonds, and 2 teenage children who mirrored their parents' smirks. Danielle approached with her notepad, steadying her breath. "Good evening, welcome. Can I start you off with?" The father cut her off, his voice sharp. "Water, with lemon, and make sure the glass is clean this time." His words hung in the air, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. The mother chuckled as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Danielle smiled politely, though her cheeks burned. She'd heard comments like this before, but tonight it strung deeper. Minutes later, when she delivered their drinks, the sons sneered. "Wow, Dad, look, they actually let anyone work here." His sister laughed, and the father didn't correct him. Danielle's hand tightened around the tray. She wanted to snap back, to call out the cruelty hiding behind their laughter, but years of practice told her to swallow it down. She placed the glasses carefully and walked away, her chest tight. But the family wasn't done. Every time Danielle returned, their remarks grew bolder, nastier. The mother complained her water was too warm. The son waved his hand like she was invisible, demanding extra breadsticks. And then came the moment that silenced even the nearby tables. As Danielle leaned in to set down their entrees, the father whispered loudly enough for everyone around to hear. "Imagine serving tables for the rest of your life. Must be tough, knowing this is the best you'll ever do." The laughter that followed wasn't just cruel, it was humiliating. Danielle froze, her eyes darting to the surrounding diners. Some looked away in discomfort. Others stared with pity. No one spoke up. Her throat tightened, but she forced herself to keep moving. She gathered empty plates, refilled glasses, all while their comments continued to cut. Each insult stacked like a weight on her chest. But inside her, something was shifting. The fire she kept hidden, the voice she rarely shared, was pressing against the walls she had built. And then came the opportunity. The restaurant manager announced that tonight's jazz pianist had cancelled, leaving an open mic slot. For a moment, silence filled the dining room. Danielle felt her heart pound. Her co-workers glanced at her, knowing she had a gift few had heard. The wealthy family laughed again. "Oh, please," the mother scoffed. What waitress could possibly entertain this crowd? Danielle's hands trembled, not from fear this time, but from resolve. She placed her tray down. Slowly, she walked toward the stage, the room watching in silence. The family's laughter followed her, but she didn't turn back, not this time. Because they had no idea what was about to happen next, Danielle stepped onto the small stage, the microphone cold beneath her fingers. The room quieted instantly, the chatter fading to a tense hush. All eyes were on her, especially the arrogant family at the center table. Their smirks were still in place, dismissive, confident. They had no idea the storm about to hit. She took a deep breath, letting the weight of the night settle for a moment, and then she sang. At first it was soft, haunting, a melody that pulled at something deep inside everyone listening. Her voice trembled, carrying the raw pain of years spent being overlooked, belittled, and underestimated. The laughter and whispers of the family seemed to freeze, caught off guard by the intensity. Each note grew stronger, clearer, filled with both grace and defiance. "You thought you could make me small," she sang, her eyes locking briefly with the father's. "But I stand taller than your words." By the second verse, the entire room was captivated. Patrons who had glanced at their phones now leaned forward, unable to look away. The mother's smile faded, the teenagers' faces slackened, their confidence cracking under the weight of Danielle's voice. And then came the final note, a perfect, unwavering crescendo that left the room in silence. Even the clinking of cutlery seemed to pause. The wealthy family's mouths hung open. Their laughter, arrogance, and mockery evaporated in an instant. Danielle had transformed their ridicule into something undeniable, a display of talent, dignity, and power. The microphone hummed softly in the aftermath, her words lingering in the air, unspoken but loud. "You cannot diminish me. Not tonight, not ever." For the first time that evening, the family looked small, and Danielle, despite the weight of everything they had thrown at her, felt unstoppable. And as she stepped back from the mic, the room still holding its breath, one question hung in the air, unasked but undeniable. Could anyone ever look at her the same way again? The silence that followed Danielle's performance was heavier than any insult the family had thrown at her. Slowly, one by one, diners began to clap, softly at first, then with growing intensity. Her co-workers exchanged proud smiles, eyes glistening, while some of the restaurant's regulars whispered, shaking their heads in disbelief at the audacity of such raw talent confronting blatant cruelty. The wealthy family sat frozen. For the first time that night, their sense of superiority was gone, replaced by discomfort and an unfamiliar humility. They left soon after, heads down, no words of apology, no attempt to reclaim their dignity. And in that absence, Danielle felt something she hadn't expected, a quiet, steady sense of empowerment. The fire she had kept hidden for years had finally burned bright enough to be seen, felt, and remembered. But the impact didn't stop at the restaurant doors. Danielle's performance became a story shared on social media, spreading like wildfire. People everywhere resonated with her courage, her refusal to be diminished, her refusal to remain silent. Conversations sparked about inequality, about privilege, about the daily injustices people endure simply because of the color of their skin. And Danielle, she returned to her music with renewed purpose. The experience didn't erase the world's cruelty, but it reminded her, and everyone who witnessed it, that strength, dignity, and talent can confront prejudice in ways that words alone cannot. Her voice had become a mirror, reflecting both the pain of injustice and the power of resilience. So we have to ask ourselves, how often do we let silence condone injustice? How many times do we stand by instead of standing up? Danielle's story isn't just hers. It's a reminder that courage, even in small moments, can shake the walls of privilege, leaving a mark that cannot be ignored.